Everybody, welcome to the weekly edition of Planets and Predictions. I'm Dallisa. You probably know Scott over here. Scott, say hello.
Hi. Good to see you, Dallisa. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's another big news week.
Always.
It's like never a dull moment when you're living in the world of 2025.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. We're going to go over some of those news headlines, but there's also a few things I want to discuss with you, Scott, as an author, as an astrologer,
Yeah.
of what the heck is going on. So if you're tuning in to the show, start letting us know in the comments, where are you joining us from? I'd love to hear city state if you're inside of the US. If you're outside of the US, let us know which country you are joining from. It's so much fun. Scott and I were chatting backstage a minute ago about how we see so many of the same people every week that are coming back to the episodes and commenting and
Yeah.
interacting with us. And it's so much fun.
Very positive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to get through these crazy times together for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Yay. It looks like
Mm,
folks are starting to comment and join us for the live stream. So welcome in.
mm.
Iowa, Michigan, Colorado, Minnesota, New Mexico, New York, Texas, Fort Worth. I used to live there. I loved living in Fort Worth. I think it's
Yeah.
oh yeah,
What is it?
I
I've never been there. I've been to
loved it.
Dallas. I don't think I've been to Fort Worth though.
Fort Worth and Dallas are very, very different.
Yeah. So what's Fort Worth like?
I think it feels more like hometown. It feels more like the vibration of a small town, but with all of the big city offerings.
Hmm.
So I found people to be really, really nice. But yeah, people that live in the DFW Metroplex will tell you that Fort Worth and Dallas don't necessarily get along,
Hmm.
and they don't always like going to events in the other city.
Oh,
So yeah,
interesting.
it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
There's a rivalry there. So are people
Yeah.
in Fort Worth not Dallas Cowboy fans?
Oh, I think Texas. I think all of Texas would probably be Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, Texas is awesome. We've got folks from all over the place joining in. So keep it
Hmm.
coming. We love seeing that in the comments. So,
Hi to
um,
Natalie in Culver City.
yeah, we've got
Close to
San
me.
Diego, Southern California, Dallas. Oh, Dallas. Yeah.
Someone put
uh,
Dallas with the puking emoji.
is there a puking emoji next to a
Yeah,
Dallas comment? Oh,
yeah.
no.
Kelly Gurin. Fort Worth is way more laid back, a lot more Western in Fort Worth.
Totally. Totally. Oh, yeah, yeah. I see the puking emoji now.
Yeah.
But it's worth going to both places if you ever make it to North Texas, because they both have different things that they offer. And the book depository and seeing where JFK was assassinated in Dallas, that's really interesting.
Oh, I've been there.
Uh, oh,
That's a
have you?
Oh yeah. It was super eerie. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it was. Like when I was in Dallas. I don't know if it was like during the middle of the week or something, but I was walking all around that whole area, and it's downtown, big city, but it seemed like there was hardly anybody out. And I was just like, wow, this is really weird. So that's where that happened. And everything seemed a lot smaller than you imagine. Like when you spend your life like looking at those images, and it just seems, I don't know if it was just the moment in time makes everything seem so much more grand, but uh, like just walking around there, I was like, this feels so much smaller than what I thought it was going to be. So it was like going back to your childhood bedroom and being like, I lived in this tiny space, So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a place definitely worth going to. I
Mm,
remember walking through it and feeling that same kind of eerie sense of not knowing what really happened, and the stories that were even on display
mm,
inside of the museum. You could tell that they were even staying more open-minded about what did happen to him.
mm, mhm.
So as more and more comes out about JFK, I'm assuming that the book depository will have to update some of the information.
So what is happening with that? Because like I know I don't follow this too closely, but I felt like at the beginning of Trump taking office, he was going to declassify some of these Kennedy files. And are we still waiting for that to actually happen, or did they do it? Did we learn anything new? Like what's going on there?
I think, and people can correct me in the comments for sure, but I think there have been some that have been released, but not all of them. And so it's still kind of this murky
Hmm.
area of like what did happen and who was in on it, who knew about it in
Yeah, because
advance.
what I want is that Lyndon Baines Johnson knew that it was going to happen, and it was lined up to take over. I want the full conspiracy. Unless it's that, then I'm going to be like, I'm not sure. There, it's like, hey, we released the files, and then they have where the lines are redacted, where it's like a page with like 3 words that you can actually read, and everything else is black. Like that's what
Yeah.
I'm afraid it's going to be. I
Yeah,
want
I
to
think
know
it's
that like Woody Harrelson's dad was a part of it, like
You know what's so funny you bring that up? I didn't know that Woody Harrelson's dad was a really like bad, shady character.
yeah,
And I saw a news headline with him the other day. And I was
yeah,
like, wait, what? So of course I click on it. I'm like, he
yeah,
looks just like his dad.
yeah. There's rumors that he was in the storm drain and he was the one that like did the kill shot or something. And then, and then there's like rumors that George Bush was like, the architect of the whole thing. Like if that stuff came out where it's like Lyndon Baines Johnson was a part of it, George H.W. Bush was the architect, and Woody Harrelson's dad was one of the trigger men, then I'll be like, okay, now everything is
Oh
now I'm
my
gonna
God.
actually believe what they tell me now, because
Wow.
it'd be
Oh,
really wild if that was true. But yeah,
that'd be crazy. Yeah, I mean, like folks are saying in the comments, I mean, we're still waiting
yes,
on,
exactly,
all
right?
different
Yeah,
kinds of information to come
yeah.
out, even the
How
UFO stuff.
convenient that he just died, decided to kill himself in a cell and the camera was off. Like, what? Okay, yeah,
Oh
uh-huh.
gosh, the age we live in.
Yeah.
And I've been predicting that it was going to get worse in terms of what we would be able to discern as fact versus fiction, and it's going to get really cloudy, I think, for a
Well, this is the
while.
age of Pisces. The age of Pisces, where it's like, what do we know? Like, we don't really know anything. It's all very confusing. Happy Canada Day to Diana. Hi, Christina from Gardena. That's close to me. I'm in Long Beach. So yeah, give
Yeah,
the file
so
and let them. Give the files to the family and let them decide. Poor
yeah.
candidates. Yeah, exactly.
Is
Yeah.
Canada, this is a very naive question. Is Canada Day the same or an equivalency to our 4th of July in the
Yeah, that's
US?
what I want to know too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so, but I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah.
So, is there anything going on astrologically right now that would make us feel really, really tired?
Well, think about it, Delisa. We're talking about the Saturn conjunct Neptune, the Saturn Neptune conjunction. Neptune is the planet of dreams, and so it's the unconscious. When you go to sleep, you're in your unconscious. Saturn is the planet of restriction. So if the planet of restriction is at or near to the same degree as the planet of dreams and the unconscious, then it might be restricting our sleep.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. I feel like I'm one of those people that sleeps though and wakes up still tired.
Hmm.
So I know I'm doing a lot and processing a lot when I'm
Yes.
sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Saturn, Neptune, and Aries here in a minute because I think,
Hmm.
or we can go there first if you want. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you wrote an article, you sent it out to everybody on your email list. And if you're not on Scott's email list, you can sign up at theweeklytransit.com. But you sent out this email that talked about historical references about Saturn and Neptune
Hmm.
together,
Yeah.
conjunct, and how it's in Aries right now. And it hasn't been in Aries together, I think, until last time was 1703, I think you said in your article.
But
So, yeah.
hmm
What?
so yeah,
Yeah, tell us. What the heck is this?
So, okay, so, like in the article, I just talked about how, it's every few decades is when Saturn and Neptune meet up together in the sky. Right now, they're at 1 and 2 degrees in Aries, and Saturn is the god of wealth and time, the planet of restriction, responsibility, hard work, achievement, authority. It's the reality. Like when you look at the symbol for Saturn, it's a cross of matter with a crescent of receptivity pointed down. And the crescent of receptivity is bent because it's pressing into the ground, symbolizing the work that is required to achieve your ambitions in the material world. So Saturn transiting through Aries is urging us to take responsibility for ourselves, because Aries is the planet of, or Aries is the cardinal fire sign symbolized by the ram, and that represents the self. The ram is wanting to smack horns with another ram so that it can establish dominance in order so it can lead the herd. So with Saturn transiting through Aries, we need to take responsibility for who we are. Then Neptune is a cross of matter with a crescent of receptivity pointed up, symbolizing dreams that occur in the material world. Neptune is the god of fresh water and the sea, the planet of illusion, deception, compassion, intuition. And so, when you have Neptune, which dissolves, it's like the clouds. Like you can't grab them. They're there, right? So Neptune dissolves, and Saturn creates the form. So Neptune is dissolving our reality, and Saturn is reshaping it into something new. And that's what happens every time Saturn and Neptune form a conjunction in Aries. Like we've talked about this, I think, before, but the last time Neptune and Saturn were conjunct was in Capricorn back in 88, 89. That was the fall of the Berlin Wall. Like, growing up in the 70s and 80s, it's like that was not even a, a thought of something that you never imagined that could happen. Like, especially with all the propaganda that we were fed growing up, that, like, the Soviet Union, the evil Soviets. You've got Rocky fighting the Russians. You've got Tom Cruise shooting down the MiGs in Top Gun. There's so many, every James Bond movie back then, he was like against the Russians, it seems like. And even like Pink Floyd, they did an entire album called The Wall, and it was had to do with the Berlin Wall. And there's also deeper psychological themes within that album, but it was about the wall. And so in an instant, when suddenly you just turn on the news and they're tearing this thing down, it was like, what? It was confusing. It's like, how's that even possible? So it was the dismantling of the Soviet Union and the dismantling of communist Russia. You go back to the previous conjunction of Neptune and Saturn. That's when it was transiting through Libra, and that was in 1952-53. So that was, during like the height of the Cold War. Stalin had died. So it was kind of like the end of an authoritarian epoch, and so the Korean War was happening then as well. The CIA engineered its first major coup in Iran. So there was a lot happening there in terms of restructuring of governments and power. You go back to the time before that, that was 1917. 1917 was the height of World War I, when Saturn and Neptune were transiting through Leo. And that's when the Russian Revolution toppled the Romanovs and installed the first communist regime. So it's interesting because as you go back over these periods, there seems to be a theme with communism. like 1846 to 47 is when Neptune and Saturn were conjunct in Aquarius. And that's when Marx and Engels were drafting the Communist Manifesto. So then in 1917, that's when communists took over Russia. It was also a turning of the tide in World War I because the U.S. had entered the battlefield and it shifted the global balance of power. And then in 52, 53, communist Russia is becoming more powerful. Even though Stalin died, they're building towards their nuclear power and space program. The Cold War was intensifying, and then it all collapsed in 1989. If you go back even further to 1809, 1810, which is when they were transiting conjunct in Sagittarius, that's when Napoleon's empire reached its height, only to begin its long, catastrophic fall. Meanwhile, revolutionary fires were lit in South America as Argentina was moving towards independence from Spain. The Romantic movement was rising in Europe. And then 1773 to 74, that's when they were transiting through Virgo together. That was the Boston Tea Party, setting the stage for the American Revolution. It was also the same time as the Industrial Revolution. 1738 to 39, they were conjunct in Gemini and also in Cancer. That was the first Great Awakening in American colonies. Churches were overflowing with weeping congregations seeking a personal connection to the divine. Colonial wars were erupting. And then we go back to 1703. That was the last time Saturn and Neptune were conjunct in Aries, similar to how they are right now. And that was Peter the Great was reshaping Russia, building St. Petersburg, modernizing his empire, asserting Russia's place in the West. At the same time, it was the War of Spanish Succession, fracturing European alliances. So, what does that mean for today? We are going through a shift, and it's important for everyone to think about, how do I want to be contributing to this shift? First of all, you want to think about how you've been deceived. Like, you think about the Kennedy assassination, that's deception. You could think of the Vietnam War was a deception. The Gulf War, the Middle East War, deception. A lot of people say 9/11, there's deception there. So where have you been deceived? And not even from like a global perspective, but just in your own life, maybe with family, maybe with friends. And in what ways can you reimagine the dream so that you can be more confident in being the authentic version of you? Because more than anything, you need to be you, because there's only one you. And so we need you to be you. So
Mm-hmm.
what dream are you ready to live? Not just imagine. What are you willing to fight for? Not in anger, but in truth and authenticity. And what are you willing to take responsibility for in order to rise to true authority? And that authority being understanding yourself and being yourself.
I love when we hear this, and I'm sure that, there's folks in our audience that hear this and go, yeah, I see how this is playing into my life and what I'm questioning and what I'm discovering about myself, other people, the world. I have been going down a rabbit hole probably the last week about attachment styles. And I had heard that word or words thrown around, and I'm like, I don't really know what that means. And then, of course, YouTube must be inside of my brain because it knows like what videos to suggest, right? So then I start watching a video about a week ago on avoidant attachment types and um, anxious attachment types. And I'm watching these videos and I was like, wow, because I used to be a matchmaker and I used to plan and host dating events in different cities around the US. And I help clients sometimes that are looking to connect and enter a relationship. I help them with online dating stuff as a psychic medium and helping
Mm-hmm.
them like find the tone of what they want to say online. And like these light bulbs over the last week started going off. I'm like, oh my God, I think that this is a total tangent.
I
but
love
I
it.
but I think that online dating apps foster a lot of the energy for anxious people and avoidant people to connect.
Mm.
And that there are a lot of avoidant people on there that don't actually want to meet up in real life. And
Mm-hmm.
so they get the hit perhaps of the adrenaline of connecting with somebody else that says, yes, you're cute, or yes, I like what you wrote in your bio.
Mm-hmm.
But then very few of them actually meet up in person. So it's like the online dating profiles and apps have created this space
Mm.
where most people go to find a relationship that are fanning the flames of this anxious, avoidant tug.
Mm.
And it just dawned on me in like the last week. So I think
Mm.
it's interesting that you're bringing up the Saturn Neptune conjunction and like what are we learning and maybe what are we seeing for the first time that we didn't see before. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe before I would have said, oh, dating apps are great, get on there, try it, right? And now I'm like, this is such a broken toxic system,
Mm.
which is why I had originally started that company back
Mm-hmm.
in the day, was because I wanted people to connect in real life.
Yeah.
But because there's so much anxiousness and avoidance in our society these days,
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's those of us that are not in relationships are left asking, well, how do you connect with anyone anymore if the main vehicle is predominantly broken, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah. Well, it feels like something new has got to come about because, especially with Uranus in Aquarius, is going to push us out into community. So, what that means for the dating scene, I think that people are going to start meeting more in group environments, maybe. Um, so, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like anybody out there listening to this that has ever felt interested or compelled in starting a dating events company, your timing might be really good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I do think there's something magical about bringing people together in groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
It
it
takes the
relaxes.
pressure off.
Yeah.
It's like you can just kind of mingle with people. You're not stuck with somebody for like an hour and it's awkward and it's weird. And you're like, okay, I know in the first 5 seconds that I don't want to be with this person. But now I've got to sit and have lunch with them or coffee, even though because I committed to doing this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, there's going
agree.
to be some shifting happening there. I think whatever events are, coming out, and I think it's another way to kind of flip the craziness that's happening in the world is it's going to motivate people to get out of their house hopefully and connect with others and make real connections.
I agree. And I think it's connections of all kinds. So I think, mommy groups or daddy groups or, single ladies or entrepreneurs or whatever it is. I think there's going to be more and more of those organic groups
Hmm.
um, that are going to be a major connection point for people. I've been predicting it for a while, but I feel like more and more people are going to be getting off of mainstream social media. And
Mm.
it feels like that is even going to be shifting. And it
Hmm.
feels like it needs to shift into something else.
Totally.
Because anytime I tap into the energy of a social media platform, it feels like really old. It almost feels like an old Capricorn
Mm.
Saturn system
Yeah.
that just feels heavy and almost as I can hear in my ear psychically, it's like this gear that's like squeaking and grinding that
Mhm.
doesn't feel that open and honest. And it doesn't feel like it's bringing people together to connect in really harmonious ways.
Mhm.
It feels more like a marketplace of advertisements and people's varying opinions on things, but it doesn't feel like a heartfelt connection for the most part. So,
And that makes
yeah.
sense because Aquarius is opposite the sign that represents that rules the heart, which is Leo. So Pluto's transiting through Aquarius, and then Uranus, the planetary ruler of Aquarius, transiting through the last degree of Taurus and then into Gemini. It feels like there's going to be more logic and less of that heartfelt experience. But, I think something new is coming to replace social media. I don't think that social media is going to be the same in 10 years as it is right now. Just like it's changed a lot in the last 10 years, it's going to be something completely different. Um, and that's going to happen once Uranus is fully into Gemini, and there's going to be a lot of shifts and inventions coming that are like, wow, I never imagined this.
Yeah, let's talk more about that because Uranus is at the final degree, 29 degrees of
Hmm.
Taurus.
Yep.
And I've been predicting a lot around Taurus type themes. We'd see more headlines around money and earthquakes and things like that. We've been seeing more of those kinds of headlines, but it's getting ready on the 7th to go
Hmm.
into Gemini. So Uranus will be at
Yep.
0 degrees of Gemini, and Gemini is like the local community. So I can see a lot of changes coming in these next 7, 8 years,
Yep.
counting the retrogrades, where rethinking community and how we do community in a different way,
Hmm.
I think will be a part of it. But it's a huge energy shift.
Yes.
And it could be partly why some of us are feeling like really, really tired, maybe
Hmm.
because it's getting ready to make this major shift. Maybe even people
Hmm.
that have things in late Taurus or early Gemini degrees. Maybe that's what's kind of setting it off. But what do you think is coming with this 0 degrees Uranus at 0 degrees Gemini?
Well, I just look historically at what's happened, and I went back to the 1400s. So I went back like the last 10 times that Uranus has been, including this is like the 10th time, I think, or maybe I did this plus 10. I have to, we'll see. But 1439 to 1447, that's when Uranus was transiting into Gemini. In June 1439, just as Uranus entered Gemini, Gutenberg was developing the first movable type printing press. So, you think about that in terms of Gemini is the sign of communication. It's ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, and the printing press radically changed how we communicate with each other. Like, can you imagine? Like, books were once hand copied and rare. You know, at the beginning of the printing press, like, the printing press made it so that books could really be reproducible. And so it was like a seismic leap in communication since language itself was developed. So, within decades of the printing press, literacy spread. Like, people learned how to read. Revolutions of mind and spirit followed because so much more information was being exchanged, which is what Gemini is about. It's about exchanging information. So, Gemini rules the written and spoken word, and Uranus electrified it. In 1523 to 1530, so when Uranus entered Gemini in May of 1523, that was during the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. That's when Martin Luther had translated the Bible into German. And so the printing press, which happened the last time Uranus was in Gemini, now was spreading these ideas of what the Bible meant through the masses. Things were, thoughts were no longer connected to just like the priest or the clerical power where they're telling everybody what the Bible says. People were actually able to read it themselves. So faith became more personable, more personal. And it was like the age of faith giving way to the age of information. Then from 1607 to 1614 was, when Uranus transited into Gemini in May of 1607, the English founded Jamestown, the first permanent settlement in the Americas. That same year, Shakespeare's King Lear premiered. So, like, you just think of that, like the printing press, and then the translation of the Bible, and then Shakespeare, and Shakespeare, obviously, the works of Shakespeare have lasted, since then. So it taught people about, storytelling, and that sort of stuff it wasn't just religion, it was actually, storytelling. So Europe was awakening, not just politically, but also intellectually. And so, social contract, the social structure was redefined. Reason, consent, knowledge of power, education became a revolutionary tool. Then you had 1774 to 1782. Well, of course, in June, so Uranus transited into Gemini in June of 1774. By April of 1775, the American Revolution had begun. The Declaration of Independence was written, so that was Thomas Paine's common sense electrified public opinion. So by the time Uranus exited Gemini in 1782, the idea of America had been born. And with it, the global experiment in freedom of speech and civic structure. Then 1858 to 1865, Uranus entered Gemini in June of 1858. And then again in March of 1859. And that's when the U.S. was on the brink of civil war. So the telegraph, another form of communication, exploded across the continent. Newspapers became a big theme. The Pony Express was born. So, word was traveling much faster between people that were far apart. It was also an age of divided minds and split ideologies. And so this was also during a period where Neptune was transiting through Aries, though Saturn wasn't there as well, but Neptune was there. And that's where the ideological conflict was occurring. And then 1941 to 49. That was the last time Uranus was transiting through Gemini. It entered Gemini in August of 1941, and then again in May of 42. And, that's World War II. World War II right there. And so, that was unleashing the nuclear bomb. It also birthed the computer age. In 1943, the first programmable digital computer was developed. And by the time Uranus exited Gemini in 1949, television was beginning to beam mass information into living rooms. Communication became electric. So, what does that mean for now? I mean, AI revolution,
Mm-hmm.
a splintering of truth, reimagination of identity, sharing information, but unclear about what that information is, or maybe the information is creating some sort of ideological split where you still have Neptune and now Saturn both in Aries, which creates that tension in terms of who I am and how I relate to others. So like we're connected. It's kind of like what you're saying, like we're connected through this technology, but we're also alienated because
Mm-hmm.
we're not really getting together in person. So social media algorithms manipulating our thoughts, like you were saying, YouTube reading your mind, speech might be weaponized, and education is being redefined right before
Yep.
our eyes.
Yep. I remember a few years back that I was getting downloads about how people would be creating their own education systems in their neighborhoods and with, other friends that they have, and basically creating their own like homeschool or neighborhood school.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of the things that Spirit was showing me, 5-6 years ago are starting to actually happen. But yeah, I think schooling and how we value different kinds of schooling
Mhm.
is going to shift. You have some people in the comments asking, how the heck did you know all these dates? So are you a history buff? Did you
So
study? Like,
so this is what I do. I go and I've got my program here, Astro Gold, and I literally went back through through the chart, and I went back 600 years. I was like, I want to go back 10 times. So I went back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I went back 9 times. Uh, I only shared, I think, 7 of those times, just in the interest of time. But, and then I dumped all those dates into like my AI friends. And I was just like, what can you show me the similarities between, Uranus? This is what Uranus means. This is what Gemini means. Do you see anything going on in these dates that, connects to those themes? And, what could that mean for right now? So that's me using modern technology to, and it's like, it's just way more easier than like going on Google and like trying to research everything. It's like, it's all there in the,
yeah.
in the AI, and it just gives you all the links and the sources. And so, yeah. Yeah, but I am a history buff. I do love history. So like a lot of what was coming up wasn't like surprising to me. I knew a lot of what they were saying, but I like to just like make sure if I'm gonna like write it down so that it's correct, in case there is like an actual historian out there, that I don't want them saying like, you did this wrong. And they'll just say, I'm just an astrologer. I'm not a historian. Just trying to get, if there are any historians out there, let's talk and look at.
Oh, did I lose him? Where did he go? We'll wait for Scott to come back on. But yeah, so the software he was talking about, it's pretty interesting because, and we can't really do a screen share on here, but if you pull up like the date, it'll show you the chart of whatever was happening at that moment. Um,
Oh, you got kicked off.
yeah.
I got booted. Yeah.
Uranus and Gemini, very Uranus and
Exactly.
Gemini, kicking you off
Exactly.
unexpectedly onto the
Yes.
communication platform. Um, yeah. So if somebody were to take a look at their own personal chart, they want to look to see what house they have Gemini in to get an idea of where these sudden, unexpected, it could feel like a bolt of lightning hitting your life.
Mhm.
Um, and that would give you a clue, but it's going to be there. I think it finally exits, like, what is it, early 2033 or something like that?
So the exact dates are, so it's going to be transiting through the first 0 and 1 degree of Gemini until November 7th. And then it comes back next year on April 25th, 2026, and it's there until May 22nd, 2033. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm glad. I know that every astrological transit brings what you need it to bring, but I feel happy that Uranus is leaving my 12th house.
But it's not, Dallisa.
I mean, it
I
will eventually.
I'll tell you, it's gonna leave your 12th house. And this is why when you say like, where's Gemini in your chart, like what you really want to say is, where is 0 and 1 degrees Gemini in your chart? Because that's where Uranus is going to be coming through over these next several months from July 7th to September to November 7th, July 7th to November 7th. So Uranus is we're gonna have a Dallisa. Uranus is leaving her 12th house party in May of 2032.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah,
But if you
yeah.
use whole sign,
No, we're using Placidus. So
then whole
it's
sign, it's almost
we're
it's
gonna
almost
we're gonna
there.
we're gonna throw a big party for Dallisa on May 26th, 2032. That's her Uranus exits out of her 12th house party. 2032, May 27th, 2032. Yeah, yeah. So you just have
I
another
veto
7 years.
I veto it.
Less than
I'm
another
not.
7 years, Dallisa. That's it.
That's it.
But just think about it, Dallisa. Like over these next 7 years, you are going to have so much insight. Yeah. You're going to have so much insight, Dallisa. You know, like I look, I've already lived through Uranus in my 12th house. I had Uranus. I'm a Taurus rising. So, Uranus moved out of my 12th house. That was, let's see, that was back in, it moved out. Where is it? Okay, yeah, it was 2022. So it was a couple years ago. 3 years ago is when it moved out. But Uranus was transiting through my 12th house from 2010 to 2010 to 2022. So
Oof.
what is that, 12 years? So I had a 12-year Uranus transit through my 12th house. And, by the time it transited out of my 12th house, like my mind had completely been revolutionized. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for it.
Yeah.
So you're going to be so much brighter, and just like the wisdom, the downloads that you're going to get over these next 7 years are going to blow your mind. And it's exciting.
I needed a nap.
Well, you can't nap because Saturn's conjunct Neptune. So you just have to stay awake.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, that's fun. So everybody look for 0, 1 degree Gemini in your chart. That's where
Yeah.
Uranus is going to be kicking up all of the lightning.
And then look
And
at like,
yeah.
also look, do you have any planets, between 0 and 1 degree in any of the air or fire signs? Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, obviously Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra.
He left again? Oh my God. I think the universe is like playing a practical joke on us because we're talking about Uranus and Gemini and how communications are going to be all screwy and changing and revolutionary. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's bring him back.
So I don't know why this keeps happening. It's just like I disappear off the screen and I have to reload my page. But, or if you have any planets at the early degrees of Virgo or Pisces. So the mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, the fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, the air signs, Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. If you have anything in the first couple degrees of those signs, then you're going to be going through a revolution in terms of whatever they're connecting with. If it's with your Saturn, you're going to go through a revolution of your relationship to authority. If it's your Venus, you're going to go through a revolution of your relationship. If it's your Sun, it's a revolution of your identity. Your Moon, a revolution of your emotions or home. That's how you look at it. That's how you figure that out. Yes.
Can hardly wait. What do you say we get into some of these headlines?
Oh yeah,
Before
yeah.
you jump off the screen again. Okay.
Yes.
All right, we're going to talk about something that hit home actually for me a couple of days ago.
Wow.
So I am in North Idaho, and I got a text message from a close friend of mine, and she said something about, I just saw that there's an active shooter. Like, what the heck? And then, of course, like a couple minutes later, my cell phone's pinging. So this happened in Coeur d'Alene. So it's the closest like major city you may know of is Spokane. Um, the community has absolutely rallied together these last few days. It's heartbreaking to see the photos of the two firefighters that were killed and then the one who's still fighting for his life. But what's been revealed is that there was a 20-year-old that was the shooter, and that these firefighters went to go respond to a fire and in the process were shot and killed. Um, it it's a very, very small town. There's about 55,000 people that live in Coeur d'Alene. So last night I went to my dance class and one of the teachers wasn't there. And they said, all the money from tonight's dance class, we're going to be donating it to the families that are affected by, what's happened this week. And it turns out that the teacher that wasn't there, her husband was the person driving the water truck to the scene of the fire. And one of the firefighters that was killed told him not to come to the fire, that there was this shooting that was happening. And sounds like the person who was killed, the firefighter that was killed, it was the last message they sent out was to this other person that was en route to come deliver the water, saying, don't come, don't come. And then, of course, we find out later what happened. But the 20-year-old's reported tried to be a firefighter and was not hired as a firefighter. And that may be part of the reason why all of this happened. I think there's a lot of shock here too, because a lot of people, because it's a smaller community, they think, oh, it won't happen here, or, if that happens in these big cities. And so to have it happen here, it's just a reminder that these things are happening everywhere. And it's just really, really sad. And just wanted to say thank you. I know a lot of people were messaging me this week asking if I was near where this happened. It's about 5 miles from where I live. So close enough. They had a
That's
shelter.
super close.
Yeah, they
5
had a
miles?
shelter. Yeah, and I'm not in Coeur d'Alene city limits. I'm in the town next to it, but it all looks the same. All the streets
So
are
5
connected.
minutes is 5 minutes away,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. So they had
right?
a shelter in place for the residents of Coeur d'Alene while this was all happening. And, local news was really afraid that they weren't going to get it all solved or find the shooter before nightfall. But then it all happened that they were able to locate him, it sounds like, based off of a ping on his cell phone. So they went and Homeland Security was called in for it. It was quite a really, really sad situation. And it's not the only story that brings Idaho in the news this week. So
Did they capture him, or
he killed himself.
he killed himself? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Brian Kohlberger agreed to plead guilty on all counts of, these are the four college students in Moscow, Idaho, which is like a couple hours from me, closer to a town my dad grew up in. But the family, I know at least one of the families of the four victims is really, really angry.
Why is that? Why are
Well,
they angry?
they wanted him to go to trial and be on trial for the death penalty of
Mhm.
killing these four students. So they wanted to see that kind of justice, or at least an attempt at putting him on trial. And so with this, if the judge accepts it, then he will plead guilty, and it will give him, essentially, he'll be in prison for the rest of his life, it sounds like, but he'll avoid the death penalty. So I can see both sides of it, and I don't ever want to imagine like being in a situation like these four families have been in.
Mhm.
And everybody that's been touched by the tragedy. And Moscow, Idaho is a very small college town,
Hmm.
similar to Coeur d'Alene. Coeur d'Alene, not so much a college town. We've got Gonzaga over in Spokane, but um, you know, if this were to have gone to trial, and let's assume the judge says, okay, let's go ahead and sign off on the plea deal, then if it would have gone to trial, you never know what's going to happen or who's going to be on the jury. And there was a lot of speculation that they weren't ever going to find enough jurors that would give him a fair trial. But then not only that, let's assume he gets convicted in trial. Then you have all of these years of appeals. They're going to happen because it's a death penalty case. So, I luckily, thankfully, am not having to make that decision. But I'm just like, wow, Idaho, like there must be something in Idaho's birth chart that's just getting hammered this week. Because usually nobody really talks about Idaho.
They're not in the news.
No. Brian Koberger, yes, because of, the killings and all that. But that's, the last few years. So people have heard about Moscow, Idaho, which never probably would have been on their radar. But Idaho's like really going through it this week. So, yeah.
I vaguely remember this story because it was like maybe 3 years ago, and I feel like I dove into it at the time. But like, what's the story? What was his motivation for killing these students?
I think a lot of it has not been released. There's even some things, even with a gag order, there's things that have been released. So it's been kind of a slippery road to even get it to trial because people are leaking information. I did a video on YouTube. It was probably about 3 years ago where I looked at it, and psychically, if I remember correctly, and everybody can find it on my YouTube page, but it's called like the Moscow, Idaho murders. I could see him like scoping out the house. And I even felt like maybe there was a party or something and he had been there. But I felt like he had too much attention paid to one of the girls. Because the 4 victims, it was like 2 best friends, and then it was a couple, a lady and her boyfriend. So one of the friend out of the 2, I felt like he was really honed in on. But he was going to school, an advanced degree in like criminology or something of that nature. So it's almost like his brain was fascinated by criminals and the psychology, and like, this is spirit, right? Downloading. It's like, what it feels like to be someone that does XYZ. So this is all alleged, he hasn't been signed off on and pleading guilty and all that. But it's a very warped energy when I get into it. I mean, you can imagine.
Sick.
Yeah.
Sick.
So we'll expect more news on this in the coming days. I feel like maybe somebody said tomorrow we might have more information on whether it's signed off on. I have heard word on the street that one of the families is planning on fighting his request for the plea deal. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I think a lot of information will be kept silent for a bit. But I also feel like he has an energy of where at some point he would want to talk and want to tell everyone like what's inside of his head. So we'll see. But
he was born on November 21st. So that means, let me just double check. Let's see, November 21st, 1994. No, he's a Scorpio. I was like, it's close to Sagittarius. Maybe he's a Sagittarius. No, he's definitely a Scorpio. A lot of planets in Scorpio.
Oh, wow.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets and the North Node in Scorpio. Pluto conjunct the sun.
Ooh.
So yeah, and the moon in Cancer,
Huh.
which is odd because you would
Yeah.
think that, Cancer, like very kind and nurturing, and yeah, man. I wonder if I can find his date, time, and place of birth and get the whole chart here.
Yeah, maybe somebody has posted it. God, Sun conjunct Pluto.
Hmm.
Ooh,
Yeah, I mean he's a
that's
super
gnarly.
super Scorpio,
Yeah,
and yeah, and he committed these murders in Scorpio
allegedly.
season. Yeah,
Allegedly.
allegedly. Yeah,
Yeah, in Scorpio season. Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah. So, well, we'll find out more in the coming days, but keep Idaho and all the people that have been impacted by these just heinous crimes in your thoughts and prayers. We
Yes.
would appreciate it. Okay. Um, the Dalai Lama. This
Hmm.
one was interesting because the article's about how there is plans in the works, some kind of succession plan, and so people are waiting to hear like what's going to happen because the Dalai Lama is getting a lot older. So, is there something that would point to like a succession plan with like a holy figure like this? I mean, I know we just brought in the new pope, so
Hmm.
here we go with the Dalai
Yeah,
Lama. So is that
yeah.
kind of connected?
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, I think it's really interesting. Um, and what could it mean astrologically for what we're experiencing right now? Maybe that has to do with the Neptune conjunct Saturn, because it's reimagining the authority. Neptune is like a spiritual planet. It rules Pisces, which Pisces is the sign that's associated with Jesus because it's ruled or symbolized by the fish. So uh I think it has to do with Neptune conjunct Saturn in Aries. It's like a new leader, reimagining the new leader. And I really think of Neptune as that spiritual planet because it represents faith and the unconscious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So not only did we get a new pope, but it looks like the Dalai Lama plans are coming out as well. So
Hmm.
likely more headlines to come about that and what happens and
There's going to be continued shifting with authority, religious figures, like all of that is going, these next couple of months. It's going to happen quickly.
yeah, spirit's showing me like gripping the handlebars of a roller coaster and just like flying down the
Exactly.
track.
Yeah. Well, we got to have our hands up like this, Lisa. Woo!
I
Yay!
have a season pass to a theme park close to where I live, and so my
Yeah.
mom and I go pretty often. And
Cool.
I just sit there and scream and let it all out, and that's like my
Yeah.
therapy. I have to mention this because Spirit's bringing it up again, but it actually popped in 20 minutes ago. Um, there is a woman, I believe in Japan, who predicted that there would be a major earthquake and tsunami, I think July 5th.
Mm.
Joni Patry, who's a Vedic astrologer, she just did a whole video about how she actually thinks that the astrology is aligned with that kind of thing happening for Japan.
Uh-huh. Huh.
Um, so my question is, before we move on to the next headline is, what is happening in the charts right now that would, I mean, we know Uranus 29 degrees Taurus could cause that big
That's
earthquake.
what I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
then do you
I'm
think
not.
the Neptune would be like a tsunami that would come after, like that kind of energy?
Well, I mean, maybe Neptune is going to be aligning with Uranus. I mean, it is already aligning with Uranus. They're in kind of odd signs to align with each other, but they're forming a sextile where Uranus is at the final degree of Taurus, which is fixed Earth. So that would indicate potentially that there's going to be an earthquake. I don't know why or how they're predicting Japan, but um, but the planet of revolution, shaking things up in that fixed earth energy, and then aligning with Neptune, which is the god of fresh water and the sea. So,
And I
yeah.
wonder if my intuitive hunches is there's a lot of people feeling either really tired or really like amped up in the energy, because I do think a lot's going to happen. You've talked about it before, how July just feels supercharged with a lot of these big,
Uh-huh.
intense energies. So maybe we're starting to feel some of that that's coming online.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm looking up because I wanted to look up the tsunami. Yeah, it's like, what happened, like March 11th,
Mm-hmm.
2011 was that big tsunami in Japan, earthquake and tsunami. Uh that was when Uranus was at the final degree, 29 degrees of Pisces.
Oh,
It literally transited into Aries the day after on March 12th.
wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that gives me the chills.
Exactly. So,
Oh,
so what's going to happen on July 5th or July 6th, because is something going to happen? I don't know,
oh, I got
like,
chills.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And then when was the other tsunami? That was in Indonesia.
oh, yeah.
Tsunami. Okay, so that was 2004. That was December 26th. 2004, December 26th, 2004. So that was, well, Uranus was at 3 degrees in Pisces then. It was squaring Mars in Sagittarius. Saturn was in Cancer, the water sign, opposing Chiron, the wound. They were both at 25 degrees Capricorn and Cancer. It was the full moon in Cancer.
Mm.
Um, so, yeah. Hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah. Hmm.
Something just feels funky. And when I was
Well,
seeing the
yeah.
download a bit ago, I felt like I was drowning, which I didn't really want to say out loud. But I
Mm.
think because we're looking at the astrology of it and I'm feeling it being brought on by spirit again to talk about it, it could just be it could be a symbolic drowning. It doesn't have to be a literal, but I just kept feeling like I was like taking in a bunch of water. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we've been saying, like, I think July is going to be very intense.
yeah.
June was just the precursor for this. So we'll see what happens.
Yes.
Um,
And whatever happens, we'll come together as a community. We'll figure it out. We'll be
and
here to
that's
help
and
you. Yeah.
and that's what these events are meant to do, is to get people to come together.
Yeah.
So maybe the more that we're voluntarily coming together, the less there will be these events that push us together, maybe against our will or intentions. This
Yep.
is how we work with the energy instead of work against it.
Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, Diddy. So apparently, I've been kind of watching my phone a little bit because there's been some breaking news that have been popping up. From what I understand, the jury was yesterday feeling a bit like, can we do this? That was the energy vibe of it, is like, can we reach a conclusion? Then it feels like today, and I haven't read any of the news about it, but
Mhm.
today it feels, I'm hearing spirit say they're sorting it out. Um, when I looked at this, I don't know, a month, 2 months ago, I lose track of time, but psychically, when I looked at it, it felt like that there was going to be kind of a mixed bag in terms of what he was charged with and not charged with, and there, like some kind of modification of sorts. I mean, I think it's probably a little too late for a modification, but it just felt like it was kind of all over the place. It didn't
Mhm.
feel like a clean sweep of energy in one direction, but we'll see if they're still deliberating. And
Well, it says that today they returned a partial verdict.
Oh, so mixed bag.
So
Okay, so
exactly,
partial. Okay.
just like you said. So like they've decided on 4 of 5 counts, including sex trafficking and transportation for prostitution, but they are deadlocked on the
Ah.
primary charge of racketeering conspiracy. So the
Oh.
deadlock stems from unpersuadable opinions among jurors regarding whether Diddy led a criminal enterprise, a charge requiring proof of a coordinated group involved in illegal activities. So some of the jurors are saying he did, some
Oh.
are saying he didn't, and they're not willing to budge on that point. And so the jury has been asked to re-examine key evidence, particularly Cassie Ventura's
Mhm.
testimony about a 2016 assault in the Intercontinental Hotel, an alleged yacht incident, and witness Daniel Phillips' account of, quote, freak off parties. They also sought clarification on whether providing drugs could constitute drug distribution for a racketeering charge. The judge has instructed jurors to continue deliberating, providing additional instructions and reconvening tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. July
Mhm.
2nd, as both prosecution and defense have requested. A dissenting juror flagged concerns about their ability to follow instructions, but the judge has ordered deliberations to continue regardless. The
Okay. So
racketeering
yeah.
charge is the most serious one because
Mhm.
that could be it, bring a life sentence.
Yeah, makes sense why I kept feeling like it was a mixed bag. So then my question, I guess, so this week, right? So we have
Mhm.
this Diddy trial, we had Brian Kohlberger, and like a plot twist in that. So is there something astrologically that's happening that would point to big trials coming to some kind of resolution? Because isn't that normally Libra? But I think, would it be
Well,
like opposite Aries?
I mean, yeah, maybe it's that, but I think it's the Aries. I think it's the thing is like I just think of Pluto, right? Like Pluto is the planetary ruler of Scorpio, and so it represents secrets. And then Uranus, or not Uranus, but Aquarius is the sign of bringing things out into the open.
Mm.
Aquarius is the sign that rules homosexuality. And what's the phrase that's associated with homosexuality? Coming out of the closet. So, with Pluto transiting through Aquarius and aligning with Neptune and Saturn in Aries, and then Uranus about to move into Gemini, like Gemini can't keep its mouth shut. It's like so I feel like by the time Uranus is in Gemini, then this Kohlberger trial, this Diddy trial, it's all gonna come to a resolution, whatever it ends up being, because at that point you're gonna have Pluto in air, Uranus in air, Saturn and Neptune in fire, all those extroverted frequencies that are tapping into, a couple of these introverted planets like Neptune and Pluto are bringing out what has been hidden to the surface for everyone to witness.
All the Geminis are like, excuse me?
Oh,
Oh my God. He got kicked off for that comment. That's what just happened. All right. While we wait for him, let's go on to the next headline. This is Steven Spielberg screens first footage from his top secret film about UFOs. So, why I selected this article, I think it's interesting that a big UFO film is in the works. So I'm going to get Scott's take on why UFOs are making the news. So I said you got kicked off because you made that comment about Geminis.
Yes, exactly. And I love that, Jack's Illuminating Solutions is admitting to, I cannot shut up because she is the most active person in the chat. I love it. I love the Geminis. They bring such levity and light, and that's really like the most, exciting part that I'm looking forward to in terms of Uranus and Gemini is really energizing that light frequency, bringing us like, let's raise the vibration here. That's what Geminis do. So
Heck
I
yeah.
love my Geminis. So yeah, Steven Spielberg,
UFOs. So he's making
UFOs.
this big project, this big film with top secret, but he did a film screening. So I thought, ooh, interesting. He's making a big movie about UFOs. And I think that there's something to be said about different movies that come out, kind of like the one the other couple years ago with Kirsten Dunst, the Civil War movie.
Yeah, I
And then
haven't
there's
seen that
this,
yet. I need to see that.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then there's this one with UFOs. I'm like, I think they try to bring us information through pop culture
Oh, totally.
to get people like more on board with these things. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, cool. They're going to tell us more about UFOs.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that goes back to everything that we were just talking about with like the Diddy trial and the trial in Idaho, where it's like, this is bringing secrets, top secret, untitled sci-fi film, bringing it to light. So, sci-fi, science fiction is innovation. I feel like science fiction is going to come to life with Uranus transiting into Gemini. And maybe there are some secrets revealed about UFOs or, what that means. Is it aliens? Is it, the government? Like what's really going on? Yeah, I think some of it's going to come to light.
Yeah, I think by the time we get to Uranus leaving Gemini in 2033, there's going to be so much that we learn in these next several years that aren't even on the radar right now.
Think about it, Dallisa. Like when we were going back through all those different times Uranus has transited through Gemini, like the printing press. Like people, like think about how much more the common individual has, the information that they have access to that they didn't have access to before. And then like translating the Bible where people could actually read it. It wasn't in Latin. It was in a more common language like German. And people were like, oh, wait, so now I can interpret this. I don't need this person up here at the pulpit interpreting it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Really changes the frequency. And so that's why you have all this misinformation. Because it's like there's so much information that we're learning, which is enlightening us, but it needs to be muddied so that we can't see it as clearly as we need to in order to really empower ourselves.
Denise is saying, I'm ready for alien friends.
Hi. Hi, Denise.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what's next. Oh, that's not. Oh, how did that get in there?
Oh.
I guess I'm supposed to talk about my class. I'm teaching a class July 30th about the other side. It's about signs our loved ones show us from the other side and sharing different stories from community members. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's by donation. It's on the website, spiritandspark.com. So it just got uploaded with the other headlines or with the headlines. So
nice commercial break.
Yes. Okay. Moving right along. There's a few in here about Trump. The breaking news stuff today has been about Trump. The U.S. won't send some weapons pledged to Ukraine following a Pentagon review of military assistance. There's something in here about a ceasefire agreement. So there's just a lot going on. So I'm going to go through a couple of these that we found. So anti-Trump protests apparently taking place July 4th. Not surprising there. Ice Fears shut down July 4th events in multiple California cities where our buddy Scott is.
Mm-hmm.
There's another war story. Women can be drafted into the Danish military as Russian aggression and military investment grow. And Trump says, as our final headline, says he'll look at deporting Musk as the feud reignites. So all of the war fighting each other, Trump, Musk. I just put those all kind of lumping
Yeah.
together at the end.
Yeah.
So
I was talking to my local butcher here the other day, and he said that he was having trouble getting product, because a lot of people where he gets his meat from in Central California are not coming to work because they're afraid of being deported. So
wow.
it's such a strange thing, like all these headlines. I don't know. It's just all politics.
Mhm.
It's just the fight for power, and it's just so strange to me. But in understanding Trump's astrology, it's also not strange in recognizing that he's a Gemini. So sometimes he's going to say one thing, but then he's going to do something that's completely opposite to what he said. So it's no offense to any Geminis here. I always just say that the Geminis, they change their mind because they get new information. And
Ah.
so, and when you get new information, you change your mind. And so I don't know what information Trump is getting, but he's somebody who just sort of plants his fat flag on, being about business and commerce and, and the economy and all that. But, he's clearly showing his political nature by doing whatever he can to hurt California. Uh,
Hmm.
because like, if you care about business, then you don't want to shut down restaurants or farms or hotels. It doesn't make any sense if you care about that, unless you're trying to hurt the state because the state leadership is in opposition to you. And so it's just very upsetting and unsettling and disturbing to think that people are afraid to come to work because they're fearing for their security in being in this country.
Yeah, and we talked about it before, and I had made this prediction a while back, but that it would be a hot summer in terms of people being really, really angry and that there would be these big protests. So it doesn't
Hmm.
surprise me that there's headlines now about protests that are forming for the 4th. So not
Yeah.
surprising. Yeah.
Yeah. And the irony of that too, because it's like Trump is a very patriotic person, and yet people in this state are afraid to go to a 4th of July celebration where they
Mm.
would seemingly be celebrating the country because they're going to be taken from their homes and families and shipped back to whatever country they came from. It's really, it doesn't make any sense except to understand that his objective is not in keeping America safe, as he said, and it's more about enforcing his political will on the people who oppose him.
Hmm. We're all going to take a big, deep breath. We got a
Yeah.
lot that we're moving through right now.
Hmm.
Um, I know we'll be back next Tuesday. It just feels like this week ahead is going to be monumental. Um, and I have chills coming up my legs as I say that as confirmation. So I would anticipate that by the time we get together on this live stream again next Tuesday, that there's going to be really, really big headlines that we're going to have to talk about. Not that it hasn't been that, but yeah, it just feels like the intensity is ratcheting up over this next week.
For sure, absolutely. And I want to address Ellen, who's asking us like for any insight as to how we stop this absolutely horrid treatment being done by our Homeland Security Department, placing innocents in concentration camps, people dying in custody. I mean, this is a reflection of Uranus transiting through Taurus and Gemini, which was happening back in the 1940s when Japanese people were being round up, taken from their homes, and put into internment camps. They lost everything. Um, I have people in my own family whose ancestors were born in these camps and lived in
Mm.
these camps. And I think back to my grandfather was an officer in World War II, but he didn't wasn't in combat. He was stateside, and they offered him a promotion to run an internment camp,
Mm.
and he said no. I don't want that
Wow.
promotion. And so, what can we do is it's about being decent people. And whether that's, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a big Trump supporter, and he was like, well, but this is illegal, and I'm like, don't give me the illegal stuff, like that's all bullshit. These laws are bullshit. It's just like, COVID, you have to wear a mask because we said so. No, I don't. And just because somebody's here and they didn't come over, and get all the documentation doesn't mean that they can't be here, because decency says that if you are contributing to the community, then we want you here.
Mm.
And so it's sharing that idea with everyone that's in your circle, that listen, and it's to show respect to people too. It's like, of course, for the people that are like super patriotic, yes, love loudly. The people that are super patriotic, and they're offended by Mexican flags, or the burning of American flags. It's like, if people that are doing that, it's decency. If I come over to your house, Dallisa, and you ask me to take off my shoes, I'm going to take off my shoes. If I come into your house and I say I'm not taking off my shoes, and then I go and my shoes are muddy and I'm walking all over your bed, well, then obviously you're going to want to kick me out. But if I'm respectful and I do what you ask me to do, then you're going to want me as a guest.
Mhm.
And I think that we need to treat people in that same manner. If you're somebody who's coming to another country that you don't live, you want to show the people of that country respect. And if you are somebody of that country and the people who are not of that country are showing you respect, then you're honored to have them as your guest. And that's how I feel about all the immigrants, however they came here, that are especially working in California, because without them, like, this state wouldn't be able to operate. The hotels would shut down. Every restaurant in Los Angeles would shut down. Probably throughout most of the state, every restaurant would shut down. The farms would shut down. There's not many people that were born in California, born in the United States, that are working in fields in the Central Valley where it's 100 degrees, by the time it's 10 o'clock in the morning, like, that's a special type of work. And you want to evict those people. That doesn't just affect, that's why I want Trump to understand that doesn't just affect California. That affects the world, because California doesn't just feed itself, it feeds the world. So if you're hurting California farms, you're really messing with the entire food supply of the world. It's very
Mm.
foolish.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, of course.
I know there's a lot of comments happening in the live stream. Even Annette saying that most of their local 4th of July fireworks celebrations have been canceled.
Hmm.
Um, so, yeah, it just feels like it has a different tone this year than any other 4th of July that I've seen. So,
Yes. It's like, let's get rid of again, like, I wrote this 2 weeks ago and I read it here, but it's just a fact that they love the problem. Both sides love the problem. They don't want
mm,
to solve it, because if they solve it, then we don't have their attention,
mhm.
you know? this brings out the drama. Sadly, it affects people in their livelihood. It affects people in their own health, in their relationship to their families. It's really vile what politicians do and the way that they play with people, because if you really had decent people in these political positions, they're not leaders. If you had decent people there, they would sit down at the table and they would say, we're not leaving this room until we solve this problem. And both sides would be committed to solving the problem. And they would if they wanted to, but they don't, because they don't. It's very simple. If you're working here and you are contributing to our society, we are grateful to have you here. So, yes. So if you know anyone in your neighborhood or in your place of work that feels threatened by this, support them, encourage them, let them know that you've got their back. And if they're being taken in, you're being taken in. Because if everybody went away, all these people, then it would create movement. If you're going to arrest this person, then you're going to arrest me. And we're all going in. It's like, how many people do you need to arrest? If you're going to arrest 1 million people, like, it's going to create a problem. Mm-hmm. So, that's what we have to do.
Thank you. Thank you. And you said Geminis can talk. I don't know. I think you're over there sharing a lot.
Well, Dallisa, like, you have created this amazing platform where I feel very safe and to share my ideas. I'm a Taurus rising, so typically I don't want to talk if I'm around people where I feel uncomfortable or uncertain, but I am a 7th house sun. And so, that's Libra. Libras love to talk too. And so if I feel in a space where I'm comfortable with whoever I'm with, then I do have a lot to share. I'm also an 11th house moon, which means that my emotions are connected to the community. And so when I see things like this happening to the community, it hurts me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think it's been another great episode this week, and we'll have more to talk about, next week when we come back. And then you and I are also going to do a live stream on Facebook next week. Yeah. Because my Facebook account hit 100,000 followers. And so we're going to do a live stream.
Congratulations, Dallisa. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. So we're going to be taking a look next week on my Facebook about just July through December, the rest of the year, and kind of some high points that you're seeing in the astrology. And so we're going to be doing that over on Facebook. So yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about. There's going to be no shortage of things.
You got a talker here, Dallisa. So just sit back, relax.
And I'm the Gemini rising. I should be the one that's like,
and a Sagittarius sun, but it's all that 6th house energy, which is more the intellectual. Your wheels are spinning in here, where my sun is in the 7th house, which is like, I need to talk. I need to share this with Dallisa. And other people are listening. They like it. Okay, good. I feel okay.
Amazing. Well, before we jet, we're going to do our drawing here in just a moment. That's why the jar has been up on the screen. So if you've been here live and you've commented on the live stream, your bauble went inside the jar. So we'll be pulling a winner for the 12-month personalized tarot report. You will have until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time tonight to email me if you are the lucky winner. I just put my email address in the chat. So we're going to pull that winner here in just a second. Our websites are on the screen there. Scott is theweeklytransit.com. I am spiritandspark.com. Is there anything else you want to say, Scott, before we pull the winner?
Oh, just gratitude for you, Dallisa, and for everybody who's commenting in the chat and supporting us. I just feel so inspired by you. You all inspire me. Dallisa, you inspire me. I'm so grateful for you. So thank you for having me here. And if anyone wants to learn how these transits are affecting them directly and needs that individual support, you can schedule a reading with me at theweeklytransit.com. I'll look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. And I know that I've heard from folks that have had readings with you. So that's awesome. And you do classes. And yeah, so thanks for being a part of the community, and Scott, for sharing everything that's on your heart.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And I would just say, if you want to take the class The Other Side, where you learn about signs and stories about the other side, I'll be doing Q&A. That's the July community class. So go to spiritandsparks.com, click on classes, and you can name your own price and enroll in that class now. Because I'm going to be on some bigger podcasts that come out this month, it's probably going to sell out pretty fast. I know I say that like every
Get in there
month.
now.
I know. I think I had 180 people enroll in the June class. So it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I might just have to figure out a way to expand the size of that Zoom classroom. So that's my next step. But I wanted to keep growing, so I'm balancing that out. But yeah, I'd love to have everybody there, so come and join it. Okay, so let's do our drum roll. Yeah, Scott jumped in today. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so if your screen name on YouTube is Maria Calvert, you are this week's winner. So
Amazing.
Send me an email by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time tonight. Just say I was the winner, Maria Calvert, and you will receive that 12-month personalized tarot report from me. Cool. And people are so kind in our community chat. I love that we can jump on live. And even for the people that catch this as a replay, thank you for tuning in each week. And if you do think that a friend or a family member would get value from this show, please send them the link, encourage them to watch it. We'd love to keep growing this community. So thank you to everybody. And congratulations to Maria Calvert. Thanks, Scott, for another great show.
You're welcome, Dallisa.
And we'll see everybody again next Tuesday. If not before then, Sacred Signal members, I'll see you a couple more times this week. And I'll see everybody soon. All right.